City Council Budget Workshop, meeting to order Thursday, February 1st, 2018. Would everybody join me in the I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everybody called in?
Nelson?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Rexico?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Wick?
Yes. Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion made and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Today we're going to be talking about our budget workshop, and I just want to share with not only the people here in the chamber, but also, most of all, the citizens of this town. I want you to know that we take our budget proposal very, very serious every year. And it's a long process, but it's one that has been working. We start out normally on the first part of December, and where that becomes involved is we send out the proposals or the sheets to all of our superintendents of each department. And at that time, they in turn turn back in to City Hall and finding out what their needs are. In the meantime, our city administrator, our assistant city administrator, our clerk, and several other people, they are working on taking a look at what's available for revenue or possibly revenue coming in the following year, this coming year. And what this does is it involves everybody concerned in part of this whole program. Then at the end of the beginning of January, what we do is we have our council members here, and they are assigned to each department by two, and they invite in every superintendent, and they go over the needs and the requests of exactly what they feel or what the superintendents feel are their needs for this coming year. At the same time, once that is completed, then we have and study it, and then we have a day like today where the council members and the group, the city administration people and our superintendents have an opportunity to discuss between the needs of where we're at. I want to really pay some tribute to our council members. They put a lot of time into this and a lot of thoughts. And I'll tell you one reason why I feel personally this program is working. We've not raised the taxes, I think, since 2007 or 2008, 10, somewhere in there, every year. Last year, we were able to lower those taxes, and I'm talking just the city now, proportion, but we were able to lower those taxes by $1 per $1,000, which is substantial. And we again this year are looking at the same proposal and hoping we can hold that dollar the same as what it was last year. So this is kind of a history of what we do, what they do, and they do a good job of it. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Langle, who's here by phone today, and Scott will give you a little bit of an overview. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start out with a few thank yous. I want to thank Bev and Jason specifically. In my absence, they really stepped to the plate, and they get credit for pulling this booklet together, for pulling the department head sheets together and asking some tough questions. And so I really want to thank those two for all their hard work. I also want to thank the city council members for their committee assignments and the work they did within those committees and asking some good questions regarding the department head budgets. I want to thank the department heads for their time and input on their budgets, and to the extent that they had questions, obviously they got a hold of either me or Bev or Jason to get those questions answered, but they too put in a lot of hard work. I want to apologize and say that I'm sorry to all those that, I wasn't available when they wanted me to. There was a fair amount of absentee on my part because of what I'm going through, so I'm sorry for that. But again, people stepped to the plate, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to give just a real quick overview of how this document was prepared. The tax levy, as the mayor just pointed out, will stay the same as the current year that we're in at 12.5 mils. And so we're staying at that lower rate where for several consecutive years we were at 13.5. Currently, this document shows a deficit of $281,000. And so the tough challenge between now and for sure February 20th, but really February 6th, is for us to find a way to bring that deficit back to at least zero, if not a positive number. And I'm already looking at avenues and ways to do that. What's included in this booklet is how the department heads, both general fund and enterprise funds, how they submitted their request for their budget. So very few, there have been a little changing, but very few changes have been made by either committee or administration to what the department heads had submitted. So that is what's before you today. It does include, because of that, what I just said about the department head request, it does include 5 FTEs, 5 full-time equivalents. One as a police secretary, one in a fire position for confined space, one in street as an operator, one in library position, and one in water as an operator. It is our intent, and I think that was supported at the last meeting of the city council. At least I didn't hear anybody saying the opposite. It is our intent to include the 5 FTEs from a budgetary standpoint, but it in no way, shape, or form gives the authority to the department head to go out and hire until administration, council, and that department head get together and thoroughly review each request at the beginning of FY19. So I would hope that we could review their request in the first quarter of FY19 and either make a decision for hire or no hire sometime in that first quarter, so that we'd be off and running either to, if we are going to hire very early in the second quarter of FY19. If there is anybody that wants to counteract that, please mention that when we get into the committee reports. Some of the significant items included, we included a general fund reserve of $130,000 to bring our number of days in our cash balance to 75 days. And I think Rex pointed that out pretty clearly last time. We also included $300,000 in the Economic Development Fund because we continue to find ourselves scraping for where are we going to take those funds from when we have some economic growth within the community throughout the fiscal year. This budget shows a zero transfer from road use tax to general fund. And I do want to point out that that was $250,000 last year. Capital improvements in the general fund, which appear on page 6, is $744,000 rounded off, and the capital improvements in the enterprise funds, which show up on page 7, is almost $1.2 million. So the total request for capital improvements is $1.9 million. Again, $1.9 million. That's pretty substantial. What's included in the salary figures is 2%, because at the time it was prepared, bargaining unit had not put forth their proposal. Now they have, very recently, at 3%, but that 3% needs to be negotiated by City Council and the bargaining unit. I do want to point out out, and it shows up within your budget documents, that Westmore TIF had sunsetted a few years ago, and so that is zero. Now, Lamar's urban renewal TIF also has sunsetted as of this year, so for FY19 it shows zero. The one that is still applicable is what we formerly called joint TIF, and now it's known as Lamar's bypass TIF, and that will run until 2025. So that one does appear in your document. The summary of the transfers, and I won't go through those, but they appear on page 8. So if you haven't looked at those, I think I would encourage you to look at those and go through those. The general fund departments are from page 36 to 67. The enterprise funds are from page 76 to 89. And the debt service pages are from 96 to 99. Again, I think this represents a very reasonable budget for the first time through, after having gone through committee, but making no changes. I'm very happy with the way this document looks at this point in time. With that, I'll turn it over to the committee reports.
Well, Scott, to follow up on your road use thing, the road use was not transferred this year, went down from the 250, I think you said, to 0. That was not done without thought. That was done with thought because we got a lot of roads and not all of them are gonna get federal and or state monies. So we've got to, start being wary of the fact that it's gonna cost a lot to replace our streets. So it was done with actual forethought and intent.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't mean to make light of that, Rex. Anything that is not within an urban renewal area, our only real funding source for a capital project on our streets is road use tax. So we were successful in getting $600,000 this year, $600,000 2 years from now, and another $460,000 from the federal government. But those things need to be matched, and so our only source for matching is road use tax. And then, as I mentioned, anything that falls outside the urban renewal area, road use tax is our only source of funds. So I support what Rex is saying.
Okay. Moving on to the committee highlights then. The first one we would like to address is the community services. And we've Steve, Rick, and Clark here on that committee. Any comments on that?
Maybe the one thing that might be mentioned here, and I'm struggling with this, community service or public works. I understand we've put a pretty good chunk of money towards Cleveland Park this year.
I believe there is, yes.
75,000.
Is that public works or is that community service?
It's City of Lamar's budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that too.
But it comes under,
It's under which one?
committee services.
Yeah, it's on March.
Yeah,
That is-
so just wanted to note that because that's a highlight, it's a necessary, it's
Yeah.
very necessary.
That's good.
Other than that, I don't think there's really anything that I have to comment about the committee.
And,
Yeah, the 75,000 was put in the Cleveland Park, in case anybody wants to know. You don't think we're gonna get it done for 75,000, but it's gonna get a long way to making it be improved. And, it's in poor shape. Would that be a good word? Poor?
that's the right
Is that a
terminology.
or awful shape, one of the two?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and it's kind of an icon park for us. So we think that if we put that out there, that we would put that in the budget. We might have service organizations and or individuals that wanna help with that project, so we're gonna put that out there. That doesn't mean we're gonna go spend the money today, but it means that we're gonna start looking at that a lot harder.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair way of
And
putting it?
it may be completely, partially out of commission this year.
Yep.
Because it
Great
is gonna take some serious destruction before we kind of figure out what we wanna do, so. Public needs to know that that park this year, you know, is usable as long as it's usable until it's not, and then, we'll go from
Do you
there.
have any other comments on
Yeah,
that?
Brad, you got anything to say on that?
Okay, okay, cause
Alright.
that's what our outline is.
Well, we've had a couple injuries and we're taking this serious, so this one's gonna get serious.
And also, we need to be aware of maintenance in other parks also, so there's,
Yep.
we need to have dollars available to keep those facilities upgraded.
They're all getting outdated, can't get parts for them anymore.
Yep.
And it's served its purpose. It's done a good job for us, and that park is used up tremendously. Yes. Okay, anything else on community services? Public safety, Ken Nelson and Steve.
Again, I was impressed with the presentations of all the departments, well presented, well done. Again, no glaring questions from my part. Ken, do you have any?
No, a lot of change is gonna take place this year and that, and we'll handle them as they come.
Anything from, is Kevin here?
I'm here, Mayor.
Any comments from your end?
I certainly could field any questions. It's my first go-around with one of these type of hearings, so you tell me what you'd like.
Well, so far we haven't cut anything off your budget, so that's usually a good sign. Of course, what is it, the 6th of
Yeah.
February,
Yeah.
is when we get the first phase 1 number or whatever, so.
I didn't give you a wish list. I gave you items that, I think the department's in a catch-up phase, and we gotta start replacing a lot of our electronics. So I appreciate leaving us up there.
Are we gonna go with these, each individual department separately after this, or are we doing?
That's the way I was looking at it, was I would
Yeah.
invite these guys up after we just get.
Good
our
enough, okay, I
highlights.
wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
okay, good enough, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Public Works, Rex and Clark. Anything?
Well, we kinda had, the thing with Cleveland Park on the one side, and then we've got the fact that, what is it, one of our snow plows is showing a little age, 1958 variety or something like that, or 86 variety.
86.
Looked like 58 when I was going by the other day.
It's still running, right?
Yeah, it was still running.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, so that's in the budget, which is expended. That's gonna be a big item, but, some of the stuff, it doesn't last for 30 years, so.
Public Works, Utilities, Ken and Clark. On that, Ken?
Lots of needs, but, spent a lot of time on wastewater, a lot of catch up to do, and can't be put off forever.
Yeah, I
That's
think
on the
it's-
road plan.
The old plant.
I think it's pretty safe to say that, like Ken says, the old plant, Scott, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was on a 7-year refab schedule. And it was on that schedule for quite some time, and I think it's on its 12th year, this last one. So we've lost a little bit of time, but I think it's fair to just come right out and tell people we are looking at some utility increases, and they're going to come. I am very proud to say that I look, at least the information that I'm given, Lamar still ranks, if not the lowest in sewer, water, solid waste charges, so we're at the bottom of all the comparable cities. But I do think that the public needs to understand there are some improvements down the road in both wastewater for sure. And I know we've got a well, that we're looking at adding a well to water. So there's gonna be some expenses along with ongoing expenses. I know we've got a very expensive water tower that's gonna have to get painted in the next couple of years, inside and out. That is not cheap. So I'm just telling the public that there are some utility increases being thought, being considered, and very strongly being looked at, but that's the way it's gonna be.
And utility rates don't affect the taxpayers, they affect the users. So the people that use the system and at whatever level will pay for those costs as opposed to taxpayers, which is an assessed value.
Right, I mean, a lot of times they are hand in hand. I am a taxpayer and I am a user, so, but like John says, it's more of a user fee. So just prepare, there are some increases coming, so that's just to the general public.
And I think there's a few in the
Yeah.
wastewater department also.
Yeah,
Like at the waste.
yeah. Yep.
Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I'll dovetail on that just a little bit. Our old wastewater treatment plant, the one that's closest to town, you know, it got its start in 1958. And if you look at the average amount of time between major upgrades to that plant, it averages every 7 years. And so if we're going to continue to use the old plant as part of our infrastructure for treating our sewage, I think we all can start anticipating that we're going to need some form of significant upgrade to that plant. The reason for the upgrades is because some of the tanks, structures, equipment, and buildings from 1958 are still being used. And so although it got upgraded every 7 years since 1958, many of the actual unit processes, and that includes two trickling filters, 2 primary clarifiers, a couple of intermediate clarifiers, they all date back to that 50-60 time frame. And so I think if Ron is in the room, he could probably more intelligently talk about some of the on-site equipment that is really showing their age. But that's not the purpose of today's meeting. But I just want to point out that what Clark is talking about is so very true. So we've been talking about a rate increase for a couple of years, and I think we really need to pull that trigger either in the second half of FY18 or very